Welcome. This presentation will be focused on the history and challenges of the life and responsibilities of a sex offender probation officer. We chose to discuss the topic of what it is like to be a sex offender probation officer due to the nature of how the job requirements certain mental fortitudes, a professional attitude, and willingness to work with sex criminals on a daily basis. Probation in criminal law is a period of supervision over an offender by court instead of serving time in prison. The officer's job is to supervise the offender. Probation dates back to English criminal law during the Middle Ages. In an effort to alleviate inhumane punishments, a concept called blinding over for good behavior was introduced, meaning offenders could take measures to secure pardons or lesser sentences. Part of being a probation officer sometimes means working with sex offenders. Being a sex offender means being labeled for the rest of your life. Names of registered sex offenders, along with their addresses, are widely distributed across the internet. To be a probation officer, it takes having the ability to empathize and understand multiple sides of the topic and situations, and being able to bring all stories together as one unbiased statement that can be used in court. According to the sex offender probationer we interviewed, working with sex offenders has impacted their interpersonal relationships in subtle ways. For instance, their kids never had a sleepover out of any of their friends' homes, and they tend to value theirs and their family's privacy by staying off social media. Working with sex offenders on a daily basis will naturally change one's view on personal life. In the interview, the probation officer said, "I am very distrustful of others." For a probation officer, they see more into the lives of the offenders they work with in a different light, and it affects how one lives their lives outside of work. Sex offender parolees are required to live their lives after their sentence under strict supervision. Probation officers track parolees' progress and location at regular frequencies. A common system used is the GPS tracker, allowing the officers to see where their parolees are at all time. A study performed by the NIJ Journal in California proposed that using the GPS tracking system helped to lower the rate of recidivism. In sex offenders, the tracker provides real-time location of the person, allowing for more accountability for the parolee. When interviewing the probation officer, she remarked how she sees everyone as an offender, suspicious of who she interacts with, saying, "Sex offenders are everywhere, and it's usually the ones who you don't expect." Meanwhile, the public's view seems much more focused on the consequence of offenders, such as restrictive housing and employment options for after their release. In their meta-analytic analysis of nearly 7,000 sex offenders, Hansen, Borgen, Helmus, and Hodgins found the sexual recidivism rate for treated offenders was 10.9%, compared to the sexual recidivism rate of 19.2% for untreated offenders. Since recidivism does happen, sex offender probationers, like the one we interviewed, recommend prison and other sanctions and to report any issues to the courts. One of the biggest misconceptions about sex offenders is that the majority reoffend, which is the opposite of what research suggests. Harris and Hansen did a study in 2004 looking into recidivism rates of sex offenders and found that the rate of reoffending decreased the longer offenders had been offense-free. Professionals with extended advanced training and experience dealing with sex offenders were more likely to minimize the effect of stereotyping in their professional setting. A sexual offender probationer plays an important role in keeping the community safe from sex predators, but at the end of the day, they are regular people too, so don't expect that they will be able to save the world. In conclusion, because of the increased involvement in the lives of offenders under their supervision, probation officers are exposed to many traumatic situations. This greatly increases the chances of burnout. They interview victims, assess offenders' histories, conduct home visits, and develop relationships with key individuals involved in offenders' lives. Burnout is a prominent danger for those professionals who are immediately involved on a regular basis. Hence, it is very important for probation officers to take great care in keeping themselves mentally healthy and consistently prepared to take on each day of work.